What's up, everybody? Welcome to Infin Films, the show. Today, we're going to be talking to an unbelievable cinematographer by the name of Daron Keet. Go to his website, daronkeet.com. I'm telling you, he is on top of his game. The guy's from South Africa. He's now based out of Los Angeles, works on top commercials. We're talking McDonald's and Gatorade and Super Bowl ads. It's unbelievable. Also doing feature films and short films, documentaries, the works. But basically, I grabbed him. I didn't let him go for 90 minutes. There's all kinds of wealth of information in there. I know 90 minutes is a long time, but don't worry, I broke it up into 3 different sections, so it'll be easier. You can go in there and just watch the ones that you want, or watch them all, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of it, because I know I did. And even as I went back and was doing the editing, let me tell you, there were things in there that I forgot were so powerful, and I'm constantly getting more and more out of it. So all right, hope you enjoy it, and leave comments, discuss, ask questions, whatever you want to do. I'll be checking it out. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome, and I want you to know that I am extremely excited because first of all, this is the first show, and second of all, I've been watching your stuff for quite some time now, and for me, this is a treat. This is like I get to the insider scoop and pick your brain, and I'm doing it as if I'm doing it to share it with the world. But the truth is, if I'm the only one that watches it, I'll be more than happy with just that.
Okay, when I talk to you, it's like I'm being in Israel, so I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, get a little taste of home. That's actually how we met. For those that are watching, we met when you came here for a commercial, and for a music video. And during those 4 or 5 days, it's actually what gave me the idea of the show. During those 4 or 5 days, I learned so much just by being on the sidelines that I said to myself, you know what? I wish I could pick your brain on some of the things that I've seen on your website. So basically, that's what we're gonna do. And enough introduction, because whoever's watching probably just wants us to get started. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at one of the pieces that you've done, and just talk to you about it. So the first one that always sticks in my mind is you have a commercial that you did for Gatorade with a guy sitting in in a pawn shop, right?
Yeah.
And that piece, every time I watch it, just blows me away. I keep going back to it to say, how the heck did this guy do this? There's so much to learn from it. It's a short spot. I think it's about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But every shot in there is $1 million. And if you have it up in front of you, I wouldn't mind starting right off the bat with the absolute first shot. I guess the first thing that I would like to know, and I bet anybody else who's watching would like to know, is are you choosing these shots as a cinematographer? Are you saying, okay, I know what they want, and let me get creative on what angles can do it, or is there somebody there saying, you know, the first shot I want, the first second opening shot, I want to see that ring of him holding it. You know, how's that going? Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, you broke up for a second.
Right.
Well, firstly, it's you got to remember what your format is. If you're working in a 30-second commercial, you haven't got much time. You got 30 seconds to tell the whole story. You're doing a feature film. There's no limit. You know, some movies are an hour and a half, some 2 hours. So you got to really know the context of who your audience is. So one of the things I always think about in a 30-second commercial is you can't really have these beautiful shots you'd have in a feature film. You'd have a crane moving slowly. You know, that could be an 18-second shot, which is beautiful in a feature, but in a commercial, you'd have that shot and they're going to cut to the product and that's it. You haven't told your story. So you got to think big picture in terms of the small picture of what you're doing. So when I'm doing a commercial, I know I've got 30 seconds. And I know many people are going to watch a commercial and then tune out or turn it off. So I always like to think of a very powerful shot to start it off with. You know, you've got to have a hook. I feel the opening shot's very important. In terms of finding out what that opening shot is, there's many ways to get to it. Sometimes directors have preconceived ideas, or the client what they want. And, you know, I'm hired by the client. I've got to give them what they want. But I've also, you know, they're hiring me for my opinions too. So my opinions are always, if they have a preconceived opening shot, I'm always going to try and push and say, how can we make this shot? How can we encapsulate the spirit of this whole spot? If we were only going to see one shot, what would it be? And if someone's going to turn off after 3 seconds, which often happens in a commercial, at least give them that shot. You haven't got time to build it up. So in terms of like how I choose shots, there's no definitive way. in that Gatorade spot, to give you an example, one of the most important things the cameraman can do is help find the right locations, because you're not often privy to what locations you choose. That spot, they brought me to a location, a pawn shop, and the first thing I said, this is not going to work. You know, I wasn't trying to be difficult, but I thought that it had no character based on the storyboards and what the director and me had in mind. This didn't really work, and you know, that's like throwing a big curveball in the way, because you know, 3 days to go before a job. They get excited to bring the DP in, to show him the locations, to plan it. You're with crew, and you're basically saying, look, we can make this work, but it's going to take a lot of effort. You're going to have to bring a lot of art department in here. You're going to have to bring props. Let's find the place that works. And the director agreed with me, and without trying to be difficult, you know, you've got to look at the big picture and know that if your decisions are correct, you're going to make an impact. And we found a much better location, the one that you know, the spot shot in. It didn't look exactly like that, but it had the potential. It was darker, it was busier, it wasn't so sparse.
So, you know, right off the bat, you're hitting something that has taken me a while to learn. I've been doing this for 6-7 years, and you're probably doing it for 26-27 years. But the point is that what I'm understanding is, don't just accept the first thing that's, you know, that's slapped in front of you. And a lot of times, you know, one of the reasons that I want everybody who's watching this to get out of it, because that's what I want to get out of it, is, you know, we're not quite at your level yet, right? Everybody who's watching it, not everybody has so many years of experience. So how can we take whatever we're given and really push it to get as close as we can to what you're capable of doing? And you're already saying right off the bat that don't just whatever you walk into, accept it, and just that's you know, here, that's your scenario, and that's it, and you're stuck with it.
Right. Well, this is the problem, is it's a collaborative business, and you can't do this on your own. And at the end of the day, as a cameraman, you're serving the director, and the director serving the client. And at the end of the day, you're trying to sell products or whatever you're trying to do. If you're selling a story, a movie, you're trying to tell the best story you can. So you've got to serve the purpose of what you hired to do. So the thing is, if I see a location that just, this is the problem, is often people have preconceived ideas. The ideas come to them, you know, while they're brainstorming on pieces of paper, and then you've got to actualize what people have in their minds. So you've got to be quite delicate sometimes if you want to change things completely, or people have ideas and it doesn't work, or you can't find the right location. So there's two aspects to your work. There's first the planning of it, and then the execution. And sometimes the execution is not what, you know, there's a better way to make things work. And then the most important trick as a cameraman and as a director is diplomacy, is trying to get everyone on board to see that this works. And finding great shots and making great shots, that's easy. It's getting everyone on board, feeling that this works. There's no point me going to do a great shot that I think works, the client doesn't think work, and it makes no difference if it works. Everyone's got to be happy.
So you said like 20 things right now that I don't even know where to start. There's so much good stuff there. Let's start with the way you behave on set and everything. I was with you for 4 or 5 days, and one of the main things, I mean this, one of the main things that I took away, other than the techniques and whatnot, is they were like 17, 18-hour days back to back, one after the other. I was dying, and I was only along for 5-6 hours at a time. And I saw you 100%, you know, gentleman from beginning to end. It really was a big takeaway for me, because you could be, you know, pardon my French, but you could be bitchy and you could be moany and you could be all that kind of stuff. But then everything would break down and you wouldn't get what you needed. And even if you did get what you need, you would leave a bad taste in your mouth. So, okay, that's one thing on the side. But what I really want to focus on is how to get beautiful shots. I think you just said something, and you said that getting the gorgeous shot is really the easy part. Now, it is for you. But what I want to do is break down some of these shots that are in this piece, and understand what is it that makes that a good shot, and what could have made it bad. But before we do that, I want to go back to what you were saying about the location. What did you see? The other people don't have your eye, the guys that you were with, and obviously they didn't, because they picked that other location, which you disagreed with. So what was it about this new location that really said, okay, here's where we can shoot it, that the average person doesn't notice? So that way we can learn from that and start looking for those too, you know, those elements as well.
Right. You know, in our business, you often think there's rights and wrongs, and there isn't really. It's just perception. It's what it's almost like a feeling. So sometimes you'll see location photos that someone will send you, and they feel like they might not work. But when you go there, you see different possibilities. And different people, there's no right or wrong way. If you get 10 people into a room, 10 different cameramen, they're all going to see a different way. So you usually get hired based on the kind of work you've done in the past, and people hire because they like your sensibilities, the way you see things. So what I do is I try to be open-minded, and it's hard to say, but when you go into a location, you just know when it works and when it doesn't. You have preconceived ideas, and sometimes the location's way nicer than you even expected, and sometimes it's worse. When it's worse, you figure out, look, I can make this work, and it's simple to make it work, and it's got potential. But you instinctually know it's a compromise. No matter who you get to art direct this, the thing is, it's not just the look, it's also performance that's important. And you've got to remember that actors
work in
an environment.
What do you mean by that? Because don't forget that a lot of the people that are going to be watching this, they're not there yet. I know I'm even not. I'm not there yet. I don't work with actors all the time. I don't have an art director. I'm you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some of these things we'll be getting there, hopefully. But yeah, go ahead, continue with what did you mean by performance?
Let me say this. Just like when I go into a location for the first time and I see its possibilities, it does something to me. I either get excited by it or I don't. By the same token, an actor who's working in a space is going to also have that sensation, whether this is right or whether it's wrong. It's very tough to have a green screen, put an actor behind it and say, look, this is Mauritius. This is a beautiful ocean. Get into character and just pull it off. Versus if he was there and he could feel the tree, it becomes part of him. He's going to give a better. So that's the way you've got to approach things. Is it worth the effort to make this work? So just out of shot, you got everything that doesn't work. In shot, you've made everything work, but you still got an actor in an environment that might not be conducive to him being in that moment. So you got to weigh. Look, at the end of the day, it all comes down to budget. It doesn't matter if it's big budget, small budget.
Yeah.
You've got to make the right decisions. And for me, the most important thing for any cameraman on a small budget job is to take his work to another level, is finding the correct location. Because you don't necessarily have the money to art direct it and to inspire actors in the space because it works. If you just got white walls and you put just everything in front of a camera, you do everything on a long lens and you make the foreground out of focus just to make everything work. At the end of the day, the actor is still standing in a warehouse and he's told to make believe that he's in Mauritius. You can imagine that's not as conducive to performance as if he was. Obviously, you can't always go to, so everything is a juggling act. So my job as a cameraman, I think, is to just give my opinions and in terms of the big picture. And the most important thing I can do at a location scale is let them know if it works. Often I might find a great location and say, look, we're going to be doing dialogue. We're right next to an airport. And I might say, look, I don't think this is a great location. As much as you think it is, have you considered the fact that every 2 minutes we're going to have interruptions? That's going to mess performance. So at the same token, it's not just about the image. It's about many factors. And as a cameraman, I find like I'm on set many more days in a year than the directors I work with because they have to pitch, they have to go to casting sessions. So you get a better sense in terms of experience of what locations are more conducive to good sound, to all those things you've got to take into consideration.
Daron, let's jump into this piece, this Gatorade piece, shot by shot. Let's at least start with the first shot. What I would like to get out of it is learn a few tips on how to make things look that freaking good. I mean, that thing looks so good, and my belief is that a lot of things that you're saying are there's so much information. I didn't, you're boggling my mind right now because a lot of it I'm not there yet, and I think a lot of people are not there yet. But we will get there. So it's good to have it, good to store it. But I think that in order for us to get there, if we can make our stuff look gorgeous and in front of enough people, slowly we start climbing that ladder. I feel that's what's happening with me, is that I'm getting better and better, and as I'm getting better and better, I get hired for better productions and higher productions and etc. So let's look at this first one and tell us what really works with this first shot. I mean, what is it that's the first shot is the really let me go get to it. Yeah, it's a pretty tight shot, of the ring in his hands, in the gentleman's hands, and there's a nice camera movement there. So it really kind of like starts off with black and then it starts to come up. What's going on with that camera movement? Is that a little jib shot? Is that just a simple tripod?
Yes. No, that is on a dolly, and that's a boom up. So basically, the whole idea is this man is in his pawn shop. It's his world. It's his environment. There's, often what you see and what you don't see are just as important. So there's a lot of darkness in the place, and there's a lot of light. So we reveal it coming out of darkness, and we basically boom from a black area, which is the countertop of where the pawn shop owner works,
right?
And we just boom up to reveal him playing with this piece that to him is very valuable, and that's the idea of a pawn shop. Is it valuable? Everyone finds different values in different items in a pawn shop, and it's that kind of negotiation that you have. Is it a pawn shop owner is trying to make it feel more valuable than it is, and the buyer's trying to say, look, I really want it, but not overstated. So these are the subtleties of the story, and
you had all this in mind when you're thinking of this opening shot right here. In other words, that's your call, or it wasn't pre-told to you. Hey, that's what we want. We want this tight shot.
Look, to tell you the truth, when you do commercials, quite often you don't know what's going to be the opening shot. You know the gist of the story of what you want,
right?
And I technically figure out what's the most important thing to shoot first. So in something like that, we might focus on the performance first and just do all his dialogue, dollying through the environment with different shots. And then as you're developing this, you have preconceived ideas of how to tell the story, how to build up the story. You need to get an interesting close-up of, for example, him playing with the ring. So when it comes to that,
I see.
There's different ways of doing it, and the fact that we might have shot that in a very interesting way might be the shot that editorially ends up being the first shot. It might not have been the first shot that I would have had in mind, so you never know.
Okay, so I have a couple. I got a couple technical questions. The first technical question is, what actual equipment is being used to get that boom? And is it something? Does it have to be an expensive piece? I mean, they might have had a big budget here. I'm guessing it's for Gatorade. I mean, you know what I mean. But could it be done by the average guy who's getting started? That boom shot, I think it can.
This wasn't even a big budget. This wasn't even a job. This was for a Gatorade copywriter and a director building a reel. So it was a Gatorade spec job to the client, and the client never approved it.
Oh, they're crazy. This is the greatest thing ever.
So it never got made officially for the big screen, but the copywriter loved the idea. The client, for whatever reason, never came, it never fitted into their strategy, wanted to make it, and this director was building a reel.
So how does, go ahead. So what equipment was used for the boom?
That was done under $10,000, maybe $5,000, $6,000. I don't really know. I don't really know as a DP what the budgets are, what kind of tools they have.
Yeah.
But we did that shot with a hydraulic dolly, a Fisher 11, and it's got a hydraulic arm that you can navigate, and it can boom up in a very consistent, very smooth way, mechanical way.
So are we pushing in at the same time? Is that what's going on here?
I don't remember if we pushed in. We could have. I probably had the dolly on a slider. So what happens is I'll do the camera is on the dolly, on a head. It's got a hydraulic arm, which I have a dolly grip navigate that, and that just moves it up or down at whatever speed I want. So if I say to him, look, I want a 4-second shot, I'm going to give him my opening position that I want, and I'll tell him this is where I want to end, and I want you to get there in 4 seconds. If I watch the rhythm of the shot and I felt like, look, in the commercial, they're going to cut out of it too soon, I'm going to miss the meat, I might say, let's boom up 20% faster. While that's happening, I might be on a slide, and I might have just creeped in a little. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think I would have boomed in, because that's very macro world. It would be very tricky with focus to do a little move in. So I don't remember if I did move in, but if I did, it would have been very precise, and I would have had a focus puller, would have had marks. He would have known exactly how close I'm going to move to, because that's very precise to get the focus correct.
Personally, that's kind of wild right there. I don't have access to that. I don't think 90% of the people have access to that, but I think it can be done. quite quite on budget. With the mini. Go ahead.
It's funny because often people think things aren't accessible to them and they sell themselves short. So on a job like this, a dolly in Los Angeles now costs $220 a day to rent. So if you can create really interesting shots with a dolly or a little jib arm, which could cost $105 to rent an 8-foot jib arm, you can add a hell of a lot of production value for a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So to me, having a dolly, having a jib arm, it sounds very expensive, but you break it down, 2 of those equipment is probably less than the price of 1 crew member on a film set in Los Angeles. Yeah. And I think it's production value. And even on a small budget, I think these are tools that can really take your work to another level.
Okay, so now, I think what's most important is how the heck is this thing being lit? How are the colors looking the way they are? How is the skin tone so real? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot going on in post production, in the color, in the grading, and etc. But let's forget that for a moment and tell me, how are you lighting this? I mean, this is way above what your average person with a DSLR and a very fast lens is going to create. Why? That's what I want to know. Why? How? What is going on here that you've made this, such an impressive shot? The move, we've covered the move, but now I'm just talking about the depth of field, the blurriness in the background, the light, where it's coming from. Like you said, the shadows and everything. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What kind of lights are you using? Or is it just sunlight? Or is it just the window?
A lot of the look that I go for is in-camera look. I don't rely on post-production very often because you don't know what they're going to do. So a lot of, there's different schools of thought. Some people like to shoot it very, without committing to a certain look, and I'm very against that. I commit completely. We shot that on a Red camera when they just came out. So it was like one of the first Red cameras in LA. So it was the first time I'd ever used the Red. I basically used, if I remember correctly, chocolate filters, like a chocolate 2, which gives it that warm look in camera.
Time out. This is new for me. New information for me. This is great. Yeah. Tell me what that is. And before you do that, I know everybody's going to stop and say, wait a minute, Red. Okay. The guy's got a Red. Of course it's going to look like that. So I also know you had a 70 and now you have a 5D Mark III, and who knows what else you've got in your bag now. Could you have done that on the 5D Mark III? I think you could have.
Yeah, I think I could have done it even better because I would have had shallower depth of field.
No, there you go.
The 5D Mark III's got way shallower depth of field than the Red. Okay. And going for in-camera look, I don't think anyone's got excuses these days that they don't have the tools and the money. Good. A lot of my commercials now are shot just on the 5D, and a lot of my commercials are mixed. From 35mm to 5D, and no one knows. Very few people can tell the difference. I can't tell the difference, and I shot it. Okay. So I'm not sure how anyone else would tell the difference.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's knock out some of the elements that are necessary to get a shot like that. So first of all, 5D, 7D, good, more than good enough. Lens. Do we need thousands of dollars in lenses? What are we talking about? Could you do it on a few $100 lens or what?
I don't think so. I mean, it depends because it depends what. To me, lenses are very, very important, even more important than the cameras. So I like to use really high-quality lenses that I can shoot into the sun. They don't flare. They have great bokeh. Most people aren't even interested in that. They're using lenses just to capture information and to tell a story. I'm using lenses in a way that I want an artistic flair. I don't want just a lens. I mean, you can get 20 different 50mm lenses, but there's nothing like a Leica. It's just got a different characteristic. It's got 12 blades, and which means the iris is circular, not hexagonal. When you close the iris down, you don't get hexagonal sun flares. You get.
But it's got a feel. It's got a tone.
Like wine. It's like get wine and you get wine, and you get lenses and you get lenses.
So why don't you give us, can you give us 1 or 2 lenses that are not, I don't even know how much that Leica is, but I'm guessing it's a few $1,000s, whichever one you just mentioned, 50mm.
Right. Well, the beauty is there's lots of still lenses that have got beautiful bokeh. So I use a lot of Nikons, which are 9-bladed lenses, and they give me the same look as the Leicas, but they might cost $2,000 or $1,000 versus $25,000. They're not conducive to pulling focus because they're not designed like film lenses where the focus markings are equidistant. So between 13 feet, 14, 15 feet on the lens, it's the same distance away. On a still lens, you might say to pull between 3 feet and 15 feet might be a big move on a 50 mil, a smaller move on a 35. Very tricky to keep things in focus.
Very tricky.
But if you can keep it in focus, you can optically get the same look as a $25,000 Leica with a $1,000 lens. That's the bottom line.
Okay, beautiful. We covered that. Now tell me about this chocolate filter, which I interrupted you rudely.
So the thing is, what's happened today is, in the past you used to have colorists, which were very esteemed people. People used to do their work and go to a colorist. Today, everyone thinks they're colorists, everyone thinks they're cameramen, everyone thinks there's directors. So there's like this, everyone mixing into everyone's world where you have. So I find that a problem when I do a job and I have an editor coloring my work, because he's not a colorist. A great colorist really can take it to another level. And sure, you get really good editors that are efficient colorists, but someone who spent his whole life coloring is a colorist.
It's a colorist.
And so I really focus on getting an in-camera look. And I use a lot of filtration in my work so that when the work lands on the editor's desk, it looks like it's ready to be finished. It looks great. He's inspired, even though this is all the rough footage he's going to put together. If I wanted a warm look, I'm going to put warm filters on. If I wanted a cool look, I'm going to light it with cool lights. Whatever I want, I'm trying to get it 80% there. So all the editor has to do is just finesse, maybe adjust contrast a little, but I don't want him being crazy. I don't want to go, if I say a director says to me wants a nice warm look, I don't want to shoot it on a red camera and then all this footage goes to the editor and it's raw, it looks green, it's got the potential to go anywhere at once, but it hasn't got a committed look in it. To me, that's a recipe for disaster, because I might have focused with the wardrobe to go in a very specific direction, and now if I wanted to go in a warm direction, they had warm toned clothes and things like that, and they make it cool, nothing's going to work. So I try and bake the look in. I try and contaminate a look. So if the editor even tries to go in another direction, it's going to be a mess. So
that's pretty sneaky. That's also very daring. I mean, I'm sure that only people that are very confident in their skills can do that. Otherwise, if you don't get it, you're done for.
Most people don't. Most people rather try with a non-committal approach, and it's safer because then they can go in any direction. I rather have the guts, but I do all my work up front. I discuss everything with the client. We sign off on a commitment in the direction to go in, and we go. And I think the work stands out much better. Every time you don't have a committed point of view and you're wishy-washy, you can see it in the work. I mean, people think that you can save work in post. Sure, you can. But boy, if you get it in the right direction when you shoot it, you can just take it so much further in post.
Okay, so back to excuse me, back to the light on this first shot. It looks like this whole interview is going to be on one shot, but hey, that's what it is. What's going on with the light on this first shot? Are you using a lot of lights, or are you going? Is this a window from the left screen?
No. So basically, when you light, it's very hard to just light without having a sense of where would possibly light come from. So I always try and motivate light. And if it's not motivated, I try and create some kind of motivation. So I always think of what would I really like in this environment. If I lit it, if someone's sitting at a counter, you would imagine that he'd be pretty front lit, because if all the lights were off, the only illumination would be coming from the street. That's how he'd be lit. If you front light a commercial like that, you're showing too much information. You're trying to create intrigue. So you go back to the story and you say, okay, the story is about intrigue, it's about light and dark, so side light's going to be more interesting than front light in this situation. So what I would do is, if I do a wide shot, I would say, okay, let's just pretend there might be a window on this side of him. So naturally, that if there was a window over here, that would be lighting him from the side. So I try and recreate some sense of justification for what I'm doing, so that it makes logical sense. So I'm breaking the rules, but I'm working within the context of rules if the situation, arose as I wanted it.